Satan in general confuses me of like what he is. Like, is he angel? Was he serpent? Like, what?
Well, serpent, you're thinking he's an animal. No, it's not an animal. Serpent is because he's serpentine, because in the
Yeah.
scriptures we're told there are angelic creatures that are serpentine in shape. This is actually in the scriptures. For example,
Mhm.
if you get a chance, in Numbers 21, you can write these down.
Uh-huh.
Numbers 21, verses 4 to 9. Numbers 21, verses 4 to 9. It says there were fiery serpents that bit the Israelites, right?
Yes.
And then God said, make an image of a bronze serpent. Whoever looks to it will be healed. Now, what's interesting, the Hebrew words for the serpents, and again, the word order may be different, but still, it's the words ha nachashim.
Hmm.
That's nachash. That's the Hebrew word for serpent, but it says ha seraphim. They're both called nachash, serpent, and saraf. You know why that's interesting?
Hmm.
Because in Isaiah 6, 1 to 3, there were seraphim with
Yeah.
6 wings. That's the word for saraf.
Okay. That.
You understand what that means?
Yeah.
That
Okay.
before God's throne, there are spirit creatures that are serpentine because they're called seraphim. The word saraf is the word for serpent, like nachash. You with me?
So I'm just still processing that he's like he is an angel.
Yeah, well, spirit creatures, and in a broader
Yeah.
sense, all spirit creatures would be called angels, right?
Well, and I guess that would be Moses' way of interpreting what he looked like as well.
Well, it's not
Like,
so much interpreting what he looks like. He looks that way because that would mean he's perhaps one of the seraphim,
hmm.
seraphs that were
Okay.
before the throne, and the seraphs look serpentine, right? That's the shape indicating what kind of creatures. Because remember, the four living creatures before the throne, all of
Yes.
them look like something, right?
Yes.
A man, a lion, right? So there are spirit creatures that have shapes and they resemble animals,
Hmm.
insects on earth. You get my point, right?
Yes.
So Satan looks like a serpent because that's his shape. That's what he's
That's his
created
actual
to look like.
shape. Okay.
But he can change his shape because the Bible says angels are given abilities to change their shape. They're shape shifters. So he can appear as an angel of light. He can appear as a man. He can appear as a woman, right? They can
Yes.
change their forms. That's Hebrews 1:7, where it says he makes his his angels spirits, and his ministers flames of fire, so they can change their shape. If we go with seraphim, Isaiah 6, 1 to 3, there you see there are seraphim, the word
Hmm.
seraphim plural, that have 6 wings and they're before the throne. But that's the same word used for serpents, like in Numbers 21, 4 to 9. It says
Okay.
those fiery serpents are nachashim, seraphim. Nachash, the word serpent used in Genesis 3, but they're also called saraf, right? Okay, now with that, let me show you where the Bible speaks of a flying seraph that is a serpent. It uses the word nachash and seraph in the same verse. Go to Isaiah 14:29. So that indicates that Satan was created with that shape of a serpent. That's his shape. Because there are spirit creatures that are serpentine. They look like serpents.
You said
So
which
that would
chapter?
then argue that he may have been a cherubim.
Rejoice not, of Philistia, all of you, that the rod that struck you is broken. For from the serpent's root will come forth an adder, and its fruit will be a flying
Guess what the word flying serpent is?
serpent.
Guess what the word flying serpent is?
What's that?
It's seraph. That's a seraphim. And the
Oh,
seraphim in Isaiah 6, were they flying? And by the way, when it says serpents, what? Serpent's nest, right?
serpent's root will come forth an adder. Hmm.
That word serpent is nachash, same word used for Satan in Genesis 3:1.
Wow.
But then it mentions a flying serpent, right?
Yes.
Flying snake, serpent, whatever translation renders it. That word is the word seraph. And if you go to Isaiah 6, 1 to 3, the seraphim were flying because they had
Okay.
wings. So that means all indications point to that Satan was a
And
spirit creature who was created with a serpentine shape. Is it a
okay.
coincidence that these aliens look serpentine?
I'm all into it. Trust me.
Demons, but they're not aliens. They're demons. But
Yes.
yeah, that's and we'll find out sooner than later. But you had more questions, so ask me.
My
Yeah,
phone
well,
is slow.
give me the paraphrase. I can find. I'll figure out where you're quoting from. What's the paraphrase?
It was the part when he put the flaming sword.
That's in Genesis chapter 3, verse 24. The cherubim.
Yes, and because it says he drove out the man we know in the east of the garden, he placed the cherubim.
Cherubim is plural. Is a plural suffix. It means more than one.
Okay, so it's more than one. Okay.
Anytime you see the word that's a plural masculine suffix. It makes it plural, like Elohim for God,
Okay.
So it's cherubim. That's more than one.
So cherub would be one.
Yep. That was Genesis 3:24, which is interesting because in Isaiah 6, the seraphim had 6 wings, right?
Yes.
And then if you read Ezekiel 10, we're told there were 4 living creatures, and they're called cherubim, right?
Yes.
And then if you look at their depiction, what they look like the 4 living creatures of Revelation 4.
Yes, they look like that. I think in Revelations they have
chapter 4 and 5.
Two wings.
But here's what's also interesting. In Revelation chapter 4, those 4 living creatures also have 6 wings with eyes all over, meaning they're both cherubim and seraphim combined.
I've never thought about that, but yes, that's true.
You caught it? So what you're saying is the seraphim and the cherubim are collapsed into each other. So cherubim are seraphim, seraphim are cherubim, which now makes the case that Satan was a cherub who was appointed to guard the throne.
Wow.
So that gives some credence that Ezekiel 28 may be an allusion to Satan as a cherub.
Yep.
Go to Revelation chapter 4. Read from verse 4 to 8.
Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders clothed in white garments, with golden crowns on their heads. From the throne came flashes of lightning, and rumblings, and peals of thunder. And before the throne were burning 7 torches of fire, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne there was, as it were, a sea of glass, like crystal. Around the throne, on each side of the throne, are 4 living creatures full of eyes in front and behind. The first living creature like an lion, the second living creature like an ox, the third living creature with the face of a man, and the fourth living creature like an eagle in flight.
By the way, that's the exact description of the cherubim in Ezekiel 10. It's exact description. But now notice what else they have. Keep reading.
And the 4 living creatures, each of them with 6 wings, are full of eyes.
That's a depiction of what?
Huh?
6 wings is a depiction of what?
The seraphim.
Yeah, because in Isaiah 6:2, the seraphim had 6 wings.
6 wings. Yeah. Huh.
Do you understand now who the 4 living creatures are? Seraphim, cherubim, they're both. But notice now, their form has changed. Shape shifters, because in Isaiah 6, seraphim mean they were serpentine, but now they're appearing as creatures on earth. See, what did I just say? Like in earth, you have creatures, human, animals, fowl, insects. Similarly, in heaven, you have spirit beings that resemble creatures on earth. But now, if that's the case, what you just argued for is that Satan may have been one of the cherubim.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been there, the guardian throne. When someone says guard from what? That they stop you from getting too close to God and being consumed by his glory. If you guys do a little search in ancient Near Eastern mythologies, you will see depictions among the ancient Near Eastern peoples, whether Babylonians or Assyrians, Egyptians, where they have images of the cherubim. They also knew about cherubim. And even in Egyptian hieroglyphics, they have what looks like serpentine creatures.
I'm going to have to look at that.
Yeah, right. So you'll see it in the images, Egyptian hieroglyphics, as well as in the monuments of the Babylonians, Assyrians. You'll see them like the Lamaso. Lamaso is a Babylonian statue. That's the cherubim. All 4 creatures combined in one. Because the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Egyptians would have known of the spirit realm. Because number one, they're all descendants of Noah. So after the flood, Noah, his sons would have taught their children who God is and the heavenly council. But number 2, they would have encounters with fallen spirit creatures, demons, Satan, pretending to be gods and goddesses to mislead them.
Would those be dragons? Be described as dragons?
Yeah, well, what they call a dragon, or we would say a dinosaur.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
so it's a different distinction in between, like,
yeah, because remember this, they're using pre-scientific terms. We use modern terms. They didn't
yes.
call it a dinosaur. That's a modern term. But if you look at the way they describe dragons, people all across the world are aware of dragons. So this can't
Mhm.
be just myth. That means such a creature existed to have gotten the attention of all humanity, right?
Well, and it doesn't it talk about that in Job too? You've got like the
Job,
behemoth
the
and the
behemoth,
Leviathan.
and the Leviathan. So
Mhm.
what they are calling dragons or behemoth or Leviathan is what today we would call the various types of dinosaurs.